Hi everyone, my name's Emily Harper. I'm 28 years old, and for as long as I can remember, I've been the kind of person who plans every step, who saves every penny, dreaming of a life that's steady and secure. After years of grinding, late nights, skipped vacations and saying no to that extra coffee, I'd built up $120,000 in savings. Every dollar was mine, earned through sweat and discipline, a promise to myself for a future where I wouldn't have to lean on anyone. I thought I'd finally carved out something solid, something untouchable. But then, one rainy Sunday evening, during a family video call, that dream cracked wide open. My sister Lauren, 3 years older than me, dropped a bombshell. She owed $90,000, a debt she called a mistake without explaining. Her voice was shaky, but her demand was clear. She wanted my savings and for me to co-sign a bank loan to bail her out. "It's for family, Emily," she said, her tone heavy with expectation, like my years of sacrifice were just a tool for her to use. I froze, my heart pounding. My future, all those years of saying no to myself, flashed before my eyes. I took a breath and said, "No, that money's for my life. I can't." The call went silent. Then my parents chimed in, their voices sharp, accusing. "You're letting us down," Dad snapped. Mum's words were softer but colder. "Think about what this means for all of us." Their disappointment stung, like a knife twisting in my chest. But I held firm, ended the call and sat there, staring at my laptop, their words echoing. Was I wrong to protect what I'd built? Before I go on, I want to hear from you. If your family asked you to give up everything you've worked for, would you do it? Or would you stand your ground? Share your thoughts in the comments, I really want to know. This story is about what happened next, and trust me, it changed everything. The video call had ended, but the weight of it clung to me like damp air. My sister Lauren's plea, my parents' accusations, they swirled in my mind, each word heavier than the last. I stared at my phone, expecting it to light up any second. And it did. A text from Mum popped up, stark and cold. "Sign the loan papers for Lauren, or don't bother calling us family." My stomach twisted. I'd spent years building my life, dollar by dollar, and now they wanted to tear it down for Lauren's mistake. I couldn't let that happen. I opened my laptop, hands trembling, and checked every bank account I had. There was one old joint account from my college days, set up with Lauren for shared family expenses. I hadn't touched it in years, but I wasn't taking chances. I changed the password, added two-factor authentication and locked it tight. By midnight, my phone was buzzing non-stop. 21 missed calls, texts piling up. Dad's messages were sharp. "You're abandoning us, Emily." Lauren's were worse, dripping with guilt. "I thought you cared about me." Each one felt like a punch trying to break my resolve. But I didn't waver. I couldn't. That money was my safety net, my proof that I could stand on my own. The next morning, I woke to more texts, each one angrier than the last. Mom wrote, "Family sacrifices for each other. You're tearing us apart." I stared at the screen, my chest tight. I'd always known Lauren was their favourite, but this felt like betrayal. They weren't just asking for help. They were demanding I give up everything I'd worked for. I thought back to all those years of scraping by, of choosing discipline over comfort. I wasn't going to let them guilt me into losing it all. I needed to clear my head, so I called my best friend, Sarah, and met her at a quiet coffee shop in downtown Seattle. The smell of roasted beans grounded me as I spilled everything. Lauren's demand, my parents' ultimatum, the flood of texts. Sarah listened, her eyes steady, her hand on mine. "You've worked too hard for this, Em," she said softly. "That money's your future, not their fix." Her words were like a lifeline, cutting through the fog of guilt. She didn't push or judge. She just sat with me, reminding me I wasn't alone. "You're stronger than they think," she added, and I felt a spark of resolve flicker inside me. But I had no idea how much worse it was about to get. Growing up in a cozy Portland suburb, Our family looked like the postcard of middle-class America. A tidy house with a green lawn, a station wagon in the driveway, and neighbours who'd wave as they walked their dogs. My dad, a software engineer, spent his days coding for a tech firm, always in his pressed polos. Mom, a high school English teacher, graded papers late into the night, her desk a maze of red pens and novels. My sister Lauren, 3 years older, was their shining star, the one they always saw first. To the outside world we were perfect, but inside those walls things were never quite even. As a little girl I felt it early. I'd throw myself into school, finding comfort in books and writing. In 4th grade, I won a regional essay contest, clutching a shiny certificate I couldn't wait to show my parents. I pictured their faces lighting up, proud of me. But that same day, Lauren had a piano recital. They were there, cheering in the front row, while I got a rushed call from Mum. "We'll see it later, sweetie." Later never came. My certificate sat on the kitchen counter, gathering dust, while Lauren's recital photos went up on the fridge. It wasn't just that moment. Lauren's piano lessons, her school plays, even her half-finished homework always got their attention. Their voices were louder for her, their smiles brighter when she walked in. By middle school, I stopped chasing their praise. I turned inward, focusing on what I could control, my grades, my dreams. I'd spend evenings in my room, writing stories or reading about advertising, imagining a life where my choices mattered. Lauren's world didn't hurt as much when I had my own. At community events, block parties, school fairs, I'd wander alone, the chatter of families filling the air. Neighbours would gush about our close-knit family, blind to the gap I felt. Those Portland summers, with kids biking down quiet streets and parents sipping iced tea, hid the truth of our home. I learned to lean on myself. At 15, I got a part-time job at a local coffee shop, steaming milk and wiping counters after school. The work was tiring, but that first paycheck, 75s, felt like freedom. I opened a savings account at the bank down the street, dropping in every dollar I could spare. "You're a hard worker, Emily," my boss, Ms. Clara, would say, her smile warmer than anything I got at home. I'd bike back through Portland's tree-lined streets, past neat houses and blooming gardens, feeling a spark of pride. That job showed me I could build something without my parents' approval. Lauren, meanwhile, sailed through life. She'd charm teachers with her quick laugh, getting by with minimal effort. Mom and Dad never seemed to mind her late nights or skipped assignments. "Lauren's just finding her way," Dad would say, waving off another missed curfew. I'd overhear them at dinner, planning to pay for her new piano lessons or a summer art camp, while my straight-A report cards barely got a nod. I didn't fully blame Lauren. She was shaped by their leniency, just as I was shaped by their oversight. But I knew I couldn't rely on them to see my worth. Those years in Portland built me in ways they never understood. The coffee shop shifts, the quiet nights studying, the moments I stood alone at school fairs. They were mine. I learned to measure my value by my actions, not their attention. By high school, I was done seeking their validation. I set my sights on college, not as an escape, but as a way to build something real. My grades were my ticket out. I stayed up late, perfecting essays and studying for exams, driven by a fire to prove I could do it alone. That hard work paid off when I earned a full scholarship to the University of Washington to study marketing. It was my chance to start fresh, to build a life on my terms. Leaving Portland for Seattle felt like stepping into a bigger world, one where I could finally be seen for who I was. But even then, I carried the weight of those early years, the lessons of standing on my own. They shaped me more than my parents ever knew, and they'd soon test me in ways I never expected. Seattle was my new beginning. The University of Washington campus hummed with energy, students rushing between classes, the city's skyline peeking through the trees. I dove into my marketing major, drawn to the way it blended creativity with strategy. Every campaign I studied, every ad I analysed, felt like a puzzle I could solve. But scholarships only covered so much. Textbooks, rent, and late-night pizza runs added up fast, and I refused to ask my parents for a dime. So, I took a part-time job at the university's marketing office, designing flyers and updating social media posts. It wasn't flashy, long hours, endless revisions, but it paid my bills. I'd work afternoons, then study until midnight, balancing client emails and essay deadlines. My co-workers, mostly grad students, noticed my hustle. "You're a machine, Emily." One laughed as I tweaked a campaign poster for the third time. That job taught me more than any lecture. Every paycheck, no matter how small, was mine to manage. I graduated with honours, debt-free, a marketing degree in my hand. I didn't stop to celebrate. I was already chasing the next step. Seattle's tech scene was booming, and I landed a job as a junior marketing coordinator at a startup downtown. The work was intense, crafting ad campaigns, analysing data, pitching ideas to clients, but I loved it. My first paycheck, just over $2,200, felt like a milestone. I opened a high-yield savings account and started building my future, one deposit at a time. My life became a rhythm of discipline. I tracked every expense in a spreadsheet, every coffee, every bus fare. I cut out anything unnecessary. No trendy brunches, no new clothes unless I needed them. My apartment was a tiny studio near Pike Place Market, with a view of the water if I squinted. It was small, but it was mine. I'd cook big batches of chili on weekends, freezing portions to stretch my budget. By my mid-20s, I'd saved $40,000, a number that felt like a dream. I started dipping my toes into investing, putting small amounts into ETF funds and low-risk bonds. A mentor at work, Rachel, showed me how to read market trends. "Slow and steady wins," she'd say, pointing out safe ways to diversify. I listened, learned, and kept my portfolio lean. Avoiding debt was my North Star. I saw colleagues splurge on new cars or rack up credit card bills, but I stayed clear. I bought a used Honda outright, saving thousands in the long run. My co-workers nicknamed me Frugal M over lunch, teasing me for bringing homemade sandwiches. I'd laugh it off, but I didn't care. Every choice, every skipped latte, every calculated investment pushed me closer to my goal. By 28, my savings hit $120,000. It wasn't just money, it was freedom, security, a life I'd built without leaning on anyone. My job wasn't just a paycheck either. I loved diving into data, crafting campaigns that clicked with audiences, seeing my ideas come to life in a client's sales spike. I'd spend hours tweaking ad copy, making sure every word was perfect. My boss praised my knack for detail, handing me bigger projects over time. I took online courses at night, earning certifications in digital marketing and analytics. I'd read industry blogs, listen to podcasts on branding, always sharpening my edge. My life was simple but full. Work, save, learn, repeat. I wasn't chasing flashy wealth or social media clout. I wanted a foundation no one could shake. Looking back, those years were about proving I could do it alone. Every late night at the office, every dollar saved, every skill I honed was a brick in the life I was building. But that foundation was about to be tested. I didn't know it yet, but my family was watching, waiting for a chance to pull me back into their orbit. I thought I'd left their expectations behind in Portland, but they were closer than I realised, ready to challenge everything I'd worked for. That Sunday video call was just the start, and what came next would push me to the edge of everything I thought I knew about family, loyalty, and myself. That Sunday evening, I logged into our monthly family video call, expecting the usual small talk, Dad's tech rants, Mom's stories about her students, Lauren's latest adventures. I settled into my couch, a mug of tea warming my hands, the Seattle rain tapping against my window. But the moment the call connected, I felt a shift. Lauren's usual spark was gone, her face pale, her fingers fidgeting. Mum and Dad's expressions were tight, like they were holding something back. The air felt heavy, like a storm about to break. Halfway through the call, Lauren leaned closer to the screen, her voice low and urgent. "Em, I need your help," she said, her eyes locking onto mine. "I owe $90,000. It's a mess, and I need your savings to cover it. And you need to co-sign a loan for me." Her words hit like a tidal wave. My savings, $120,000, every penny scraped together through years of discipline, flashed in my mind. My heart raced, but I kept my voice steady. "No, Lauren," I said, gripping my mug tighter. "That money's for my future. I can't give it up." Her face hardened, her jaw clenching. "This is serious, Emily. It's my only way out." Dad jumped in, his voice sharp as a blade. "You're part of this family. We help each other." Mum nodded, her tone softer but firm. "Family comes first, Emily. You have the means to save her." My stomach twisted. I'd spent years tracking every dollar, saying no to trips, to new clothes, to anything that didn't serve my goals. Handing it over to Lauren, whose carefree choices I'd watched for years, felt like setting fire to my dreams. "I worked too hard for this," I said, my voice calm but burning inside. "I won't risk my future for her mistakes." The call went silent, the tension so thick I could barely breathe. Lauren slammed her hand down, her voice cracking. "You're selfish, Emily. You think you're better than us." Mum reached for her, but Lauren pulled away. Dad's face reddened. "You're letting your sister drown," he snapped. I ended the call, my hands shaking, their words echoing like a drumbeat in my head. I sat there staring at the blank screen, feeling the weight of their judgment. Minutes later, my phone buzzed, a text from Mum. "Sign the papers, or don't call us family." My heart sank, not from doubt, but from the sting of her words. I'd built my life to be free of their expectations, and now they were trying to pull me back. I checked my bank accounts again, making sure everything was locked tight. Then I noticed an alert, multiple failed login attempts on that old joint account from college. My blood ran cold. The timestamps were from just after the call. Lauren, I thought, my jaw tightening. She'd always been reckless, but this was a betrayal. The next day, the pressure didn't let up. My phone lit up with texts and voicemails. Dad's voice was cold. "You're tearing us apart, Emily." Lauren's messages were desperate, accusing. "You're abandoning me when I need you most." Then it got worse. I opened social media and saw Lauren's post, a long public rant calling me out. "My sister has the money but won't help her own family," she wrote, her words dripping with resentment. The post spread like wildfire, liked by distant cousins, old neighbours, even people I hadn't spoken to in years. Comments poured in. "How could you be so cold? Family's supposed to stick together." My stomach churned as I scrolled, their judgment piling on like bricks. I didn't respond. Engaging would only fuel the fire. But I needed to breathe, to think. I called Sarah and met her at our usual coffee shop, the one with the cosy booths and the smell of fresh pastries. I poured out everything, the call, the texts, Lauren's post, the login attempts. Sarah listened, her eyes steady, her hand resting on mine. "You've worked too damn hard to let them take this from you," she said, her voice firm but kind. "That money's your safety net, not their escape hatch." Her words anchored me, cutting through the guilt threatening to pull me under. "You're stronger than they know," she added, squeezing my hand. I nodded, a flicker of resolve sparking inside me. But the storm wasn't over. What came next pushed me to a breaking point. forcing me to face a truth about my family I'd never seen coming. It wasn't just about Lauren's debt. It was about something they'd all been hiding, something that would change how I saw them forever. The next morning, I woke to a quiet apartment, the Seattle rain still tapping against my window. My phone was mercifully silent for once, but the weight of Lauren's post and my parents' accusations lingered like a bruise. I tried to focus on work, tweaking an ad campaign, but my mind kept drifting. Then, around noon, my phone pinged. Not with another angry text from my family, but a message from an old high school friend, Katie, who I hadn't spoken to in years. Her words stopped me cold. "Em, I heard about Lauren's debt. It's not what you think. Call me." My heart raced as I dialed her number, my hands shaky. Katie's voice was hesitant at first, like she was weighing how much to say. "Lauren's debt isn't from gambling or anything like that," she said. "She sank $90,000 into a startup, a total scam. She thought she'd make millions, but it collapsed." I gripped the phone, my mind reeling. A startup? Not reckless spending or bad habits, but a calculated risk gone wrong. Katie went on, her voice quieter. "Your parents knew. They pushed her to invest, thinking it was her big break. They didn't want you to know because they're embarrassed they backed it too." The room spun. My parents hadn't just been enabling Lauren. They'd been part of the mess, encouraging her to pour money into a shady venture. And now they wanted me to clean it up, to hand over my savings to cover their mistake. The betrayal cut deeper than anything before. It wasn't just about Lauren's choices, it was about their lies, their refusal to own up to their role. I thanked Katie, my voice barely steady, and hung up, staring at the wall as the truth sank in. Later that day, a text from my cousin Jake confirmed it all. "Lauren's been in deep before," he wrote. "She borrowed from Aunt Carla and Uncle Dan last year for the same startup. Your parents covered for her, told everyone it was a one-time thing." My stomach churned. This wasn't new, it was a pattern. Lauren had been chasing risky dreams, and my parents had been bailing her out, shielding her while piling their expectations on me. Jake's message ended with a warning. "Don't let them guilt you into this, Em. They're not telling you the whole story." I sat on my couch, the city's grey light filtering through my window. Their demands, Lauren's plea, Mum's ultimatum, Dad's anger, weren't about family. They were about control, about hiding their own failures. The realization hit like a wave, sharp and raw. I'd spent years building my life dollar by dollar, choice by choice, only for them to demand I sacrifice it to protect their pride. My phone buzzed again, another voicemail from Dad, his tone icy. "You're breaking this family, Emily." I deleted it without listening to the rest. The truth about that startup changed everything. It wasn't just about saying no anymore, it was about breaking free from a cycle of lies and manipulation. I felt trapped, caught between their expectations and the life I'd fought for. But deep down, a spark of clarity was growing. I wasn't going to let them pull me back into their chaos. Something had to change, and soon I'd find a way to take back my life for good. The days after Katie's call felt like walking through fog. My parents' texts kept coming, each one sharper, heavier. "You're abandoning us, Emily." Lauren's social media posts painted me as the villain, and the comments from distant relatives stung like needles. But the truth about that failed startup, their secret, their shame, shifted something inside me. I wasn't just fighting for my savings, I was fighting for my right to choose my own path. Seattle, with its familiar streets and my cozy studio, started to feel like a cage. I needed out. Then, like a lifeline, an email landed in my inbox. It was from a colleague, Marcus, who'd recently moved to a marketing firm in Denver. "We're hiring a senior marketing strategist," he wrote. Higher salary, relocation package, a fresh start. You'd kill it here, Em. I read it twice, my heart racing. Denver, a city far from Portland's shadows, far from my family's reach. The job offered nearly double my current pay, with a signing bonus to cover moving costs. I leaned back in my chair, letting the idea sink in. A new city, a new life, where my choices were mine alone. The thought was terrifying but electric. I'd spent years building my independence, from my first coffee shop paycheck to my $120,000 savings. Giving in to my family now would unravel it all. But leaving, that meant letting go of everything. Familiar. My apartment, my routines, the life I'd carved out in Seattle. I called Sarah, spilling my thoughts over the phone. "Go for it," she said, her voice bright with conviction. "You deserve a life that's yours, not theirs." Her words tipped the scale. I sat at my desk, staring at my laptop, the Denver job offer glowing on the screen. My family's voices, selfish, ungrateful, echoed, but they were losing their grip. I thought of Katie's revelation, Jake's warning, the years I'd spent proving I could stand alone. I wasn't running away. I was running toward something better. With a deep breath, I typed a reply to Marcus. "I'm in." My hands were steady, my mind clear. I was done being their scapegoat. The next week was a blur of planning. I researched Denver, its vibrant art scene, its mountain views, its promise of a fresh start. I found a small apartment online, a sunny one-bedroom near Wash Park, and imagined waking up to a skyline that didn't carry my family's weight. But the decision wasn't easy. Late at night, doubts crept in. What if I was wrong? What if I was tearing my family apart like they said? Then I'd look at my bank account, my spreadsheets, the life I'd built dollar by dollar, and I'd remember, this was mine to protect. My phone rang one evening, Lauren's name on the screen. I hesitated, then answered. "You're betraying us," she shouted, her voice thick with anger. "You think you're above us, hiding behind your money." Her words cut, but I'd heard them before. "I'm not your fix, Lauren," I said, calm but firm. "You made your choices, I'm making mine." I hung up, my heart pounding but resolute. Packing my bags, I felt a spark of hope. Denver was waiting, and with it, a chance to build a life free from their demands. Stepping off the plane in Denver, the crisp mountain air hit me like a promise. The city's skyline sparkled under a wide, open sky, so different from Seattle's grey haze. I'd packed light, leaving behind old doubts and the weight of my family's demands. My new job as a senior marketing strategist at a bustling ad firm downtown was waiting, and I dove in headfirst. The office was all glass walls and creative energy, with teams brainstorming campaigns over coffee. My first project, rebranding. A local outdoor gear company, earned a nod from my boss, Marcus. "You've got a sharp eye, Emily," he said, grinning. I thrived on the challenge, pouring myself into every pitch, every data set, feeling my confidence grow with each tight presentation. Outside work, Denver pulled me in. I met Mia, a co-worker with a contagious laugh, at a team happy hour. She dragged me to a street festival in Rhino, where food trucks lined the streets and live music echoed under strings of fairy lights. We shared spicy tacos and cold beers, weaving through the crowd, the city's pulse washing away my tension. "Denver's got a vibe," Mia said, her eyes bright. "You're gonna love it here." She was right. I started joining her for art walks and open mic nights, feeling a sense of belonging I hadn't known in years. Denver's quirky charm, its murals, its sunny trails, was becoming home. But the past wasn't so easy to shake. I started therapy with Dr. Anna Lee, a warm, sharp-eyed therapist whose office overlooked the Platte River. In our sessions, I unravelled the knots of guilt and hurt tied to my family. They made you feel responsible for their mistakes, Dr. Lee said, her voice steady. You're allowed to choose yourself, Emily. Her words were like a key, unlocking the truth I'd been too afraid to face. My parents' demands, Lauren's debt, their lies about that startup. They were about control, not love. Each session chipped away at the weight I'd carried, replacing it with clarity. I began to forgive myself for leaving, for saying no, for refusing to be their fix. One evening, my cousin Jake texted with news from Portland. Lauren's debt is worse, he wrote. She's in deeper with another bad investment. Your parents took out a second mortgage to cover it, but they're struggling to pay. My heart sank, not from guilt, but from the inevitability of it. Mum and Dad had chosen to enable Lauren again, sinking themselves further. Jake added, They're behind on bills, Em. It's rough. I stared at the message, the reality of their choices settling in. I'd protected my savings, my future, but their path was theirs to walk. I typed back, Thanks for telling me, and set my phone down, feeling a quiet resolve. Denver was weaving itself into my life. I'd hike the trails at Red Rocks on weekends, the city's peaks framing the horizon. At work, I took on bigger projects, mentoring new hires and leading client pitches. Mia dragged me to a salsa class, at a community centre, where we tripped over steps and laughed until we couldn't breathe. Those moments, work, friends, the city's energy, built a life that felt like mine. Therapy gave me tools to let go of the past, to focus on the present. One night, Sarah called from Seattle. How's Denver treating you? She asked, her voice warm. I told her about my job, the festivals, my tiny apartment with a view of the Rockies. You sound happy, she said, laughing when I mentioned Mia's food truck obsession. It was a light call, a tether to my old life that didn't pull me back. I started to see Denver not just as a place, but as a second chance. The city's vibrancy, its open skies, mirrored the space I was carving out inside myself. I wasn't running from Portland or Seattle. I was building something better, something I'd earned. But the past wasn't done with me yet, and soon I'd face a final test of just how far I'd come. 6 months into my Denver life, I stood on my apartment balcony, the Rockies glowing under the evening sky. The city's lights sparkled below, a reminder of how far I'd come. Cutting ties with my family wasn't easy. Those old voices calling me selfish, ungrateful, still echoed sometimes. But in Denver, I'd found freedom. My days were filled with purpose, leading campaigns at work, laughing with Mia over late-night tacos, hiking trails that stretched toward the horizon. I was building a life that reflected who I was, not who they wanted me to be. I found new meaning volunteering at a local community centre, teaching teens about budgeting and chasing their dreams without falling into financial traps. Every Saturday, I'd stand before a group of high schoolers, sharing lessons I'd learned the hard way. One girl, Lily, stayed after class one day, her eyes bright with determination. I want to be independent like you, she said. Her words hit me deep, reminding me of the girl I used to be, dreaming of a life I could control. Helping them felt like healing a part of myself, passing on the tools I wished I'd had sooner. Looking back, I learned that setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's survival. My parents and Lauren wanted me to fix their mistakes, to sacrifice my future for their choices. But true family doesn't demand you give up your worth. They lift you up, respect your limits. Choosing myself was the hardest decision I ever made, but it was the right one. Denver taught me I could thrive without their approval, that my value isn't tied to their needs. Thank you for staying with my story. Sharing this wasn't easy, but knowing you're out there listening makes it worth it. If you've faced family pressure, or fought to protect your dreams? Drop your story in the comments, I'd love to hear it. Let's inspire each other to keep growing, to keep choosing ourselves. Hit like, subscribe, and join me on this journey. Together we can build lives we're proud of, one brave step at a time.